friends! I am JCM Byrne, author of Wistful Ascending and the rest of the Hybrid Helix, and this is not my usual show. This is something a little bit different. So, Wistful Ascending, this is probably the only reason you should know who I am, I guess, is this book is the first book in the Hybrid Helix, which is a series. As of when I'm recording this video, 3 books are out. The 4th book is written and should be coming out this fall. Right now it's 2023. And this is not a review. This is not really even a recap in the normal sense. I'm not going to do a chapter by chapter breakdown of the book. What this is I'm attempting to sort of give you in video form a what's happened before, what's gone before. And this video is for people who have already read Wistful Ascending and either maybe you missed something, you didn't understand something, or more likely you want to recap because maybe it's been a while and you want to read a later book and you're, well, what happened? I forgot. I know it's amazing the idea that you might forget this what happened, but it's entirely feasible. Okay, kidding. So I'm going to give you a full spoiler recap of Wistful Ascending in this video. I'm going to tell you everything that you could have conceivably gotten from reading the book, including things you may have missed or that may have been only hinted at, but nothing from books 2 and 3 or further, and nothing that's not part of the text. So that's it. So Wistful Ascending. So this book, the series, takes place in a world that is different from ours. Clearly, there are superpowers. The major fundamental metaphysical difference is every sentient being in this world, in this universe, has magical powers, or we could call them metaphysical powers, spiritual powers, whatever. Every sentient thing has the ability to move stuff in the material world. That's how their minds or their spirits or their souls interact with the world. They can move things. That's how, a mind can make a hand move. It's, changing things in the body, and they can sense things in the world, which is how they can know what's happening in the physical world. And that goes true for every sentient being. Most sentient beings can't do very much. They can't move much in terms of weight. So our planet Earth looks very similar to it, that most people can't move things with their mind. On this world, most people can't move things outside their bodies with their minds in any meaningful way. People aren't walking around lifting suitcases with their minds, moving cars with their minds. That's not what's happening. Certain rare individuals have more of this power. They're literally stronger. They can move heavier things. Some can move themselves in the way that they can actually fly. They can bounce bullets off their chest and so forth. And one conceit of the universe, or one way the magic works, is everyone's magic works really better or best on their own body. So a person may not have, a sentient being may not have a very strong telekinetic power, but their ability to resist other people intervening and messing with their body is much stronger. They have like leverage. So everyone's walks around, their own powers work much better on themselves. They're relatively safe from other people messing with their bodies. That's why I can move my hand, but I can't move someone else's hand with the same ease. So that's the setting. That's the sort of difference in the universe. This takes place in a part of the galaxy near Earth, or roughly, I don't draw maps, but roughly, this part of the galaxy is a lot like kind of the Marvel universe or the DC universe. There's lots of sentient races, some of which have been around for a long time, aliens, many of them have very advanced technology, including starships. They can artificial gravity. Many of these alien races know about each other and exist with some kind of have diplomatic relations with each other, or live under the thumb of an empire or something. But the universe is full and teeming with life, including things that live underwater, things that live in space. So the universe is much more well populated than ours is, as far as we know, right? And again, many of these aliens have been around for a very long time. Many of them have advanced technology, and they know about Earth, and we sort of know about them. We have been visited in the past. We have sent people off-world. So that's the thing. So the sector of the galaxy that the book takes place in is ruled by an empire run by this one species, or a species called the Ildrach. The Ildrach are not very numerous, and they're not particularly notable in any way, except when they have children, they have interbreed with other species, and they have children who are not themselves sterile. That's the definition of species that I go by, because that's what I learned in high school. Their children manifest these magical powers to a very high degree. So whenever one of these Ildroch, they go around, the men go around, only the men, for reasons that I'll explain. They go around, they sort of go in hiding, they live on other planets, other worlds, populated by other species that don't know they're an Ildroch, they're in hiding, and they raise families. And when they do, they're not very fertile, they don't have a lot of kids, but when they do have kids and the kids grow up, the kids end up being like very powerful. Think like Superman. Think like take out armies with their fists. And so the Ildroch, they live on these planets. They raise their kids to be very dependent on them. They're probably not good parents in the modern sense, right? They're not nice, but they raise kids who feel obligated to do what they say. And these kids end up forming the core of an army, a military that has absolute iron control over the sector. So the Ildroch are an empire, basically unchallenged. They're in charge of everything, and they are known to be capricious. Sometimes they decree that a world will be destroyed, and it is. And no one necessarily knows why. I'll promise you find out a little more about the reasonings and what's really going on in later books. But for now, we don't know why. But they're capricious, they're dangerous, and no one crosses them. So the Ildroch, they have their hybrid. The children are called hybrids. That's hybrid helix. That's what they call their kids, because that's what the word means. The hybrid, the capital H, stands for the half Ildroch, half something else. They're, again, extremely powerful. They can fly through space. They can punch holes in spaceships and so forth. There was, about a year and a half before the events of this book, a rebellion where a significant number of hybrids tried to break away from the control of the Ildroch Empire and become free, and it failed. It was destroyed. The leadership was killed. It is not popularly known how. It just knows that it happened. There are the other thing that you find at the end of the book, but again, I'm assuming you read the book, is that there are tales of the reason the hybrids have the power they have is not coincidental. It's because of their infertility, the curse, the power that permeates the Ildroch as a species. It seeks out dead ends, genetic dead ends. It seeks out places where the people won't have any more children, and it only manifests fully in those people. That sounds a little weird. It might be a little more explanations are coming in later books. So the hybrids have all these powers where their fathers don't, because their fathers are still fertile. Now what happens then is when a full-blood Ildroch, both sides, becomes infertile somehow, say through menopause, the power becomes floods into them at a much higher degree. They become much more powerful even than a hybrid. And the other thing about the power is this power that goes into these hybrids. It is tainted with anger and pride, but an angry sort of warlike pride. It makes them want to fight. It makes them want to kill. And they often, when they pull in a lot of power and really push themselves, they often go into berserker rages. They completely lose control of themselves and wipe out everybody nearby. So there's a steep price to be paid for using this power. That goes for the hybrids, and it goes even more so for the matrons, who are absolutely terrifying. They spend their whole life, knowing that if they lose their temper, they could wipe out like a whole continent. So that's the setting. Okay, so Earth is very similar to our Earth, or like the Earth maybe in a comic book. That it's like our Earth, except there are superheroes running around there. There are hybrids on Earth. Rohan is one of them. There are one of the most notable heroes on Earth was a guy named Hyperion, who was kind of like my version of like a Superman analog or Omni-Man analog, and he was the most powerful hybrid who's been born in centuries, and he grew up on Earth and defended the Earth from stuff. And at some point in the past, Hyperion got all the hybrids on Earth, and he made a deal with the Ildroch. He took all the hybrids on Earth. He went to fight for the Ildroch on a place called the Ringgate against something called the Wedge. You don't know what those things are, but they're mentioned. And in return, the Ildroch promised to leave Earth alone, but Earth is still isolated. So there aren't spaceships coming and landing in JFK and like bringing technology and like import-export. Earth is isolated in that sense from the rest of the galaxy, but we are left alone. There are other kinds of heroes, other kinds of people with powers other than hybrids. Other people have, for all kinds of ways and reasons. I'm not going to go into all the details. So there was Hyperion is also dead. He was killed. He was with Rohan when he died, so it's known that he's dead. He had a couple of sidekicks, kind of like Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane were Superman sidekicks. He had sort of the same thing. Ben and Marion Stone, they were sidekicks. They were famous on Earth. They had like comic books about them, all three. They had like a TV show. I'm sure they had a CW. I'm sure they had like 4 shows on the CW on this version of Earth. I never really go into detail about the TV lineup, but it's there. So, all right, so there's a treaty. Okay, so our boy Rohan is his mother is from south of India. She went to Vancouver, Canada. Met his dad, who's an Ildroch in disguise. It's unclear if she knew he was an alien. I guess she figured out eventually. And Rohan grew up in Vancouver as a presenting South Asian, Telugu child, being raised by his father, who Rohan knew he was half alien by the time he was, growing up. He had superpowers. His father raised him to be his tool. So that's the whole deal, right? These hybrids are being raised to be tools, to be weapons of the Ildroch Empire, and Rohan was no exception. So we know Rohan grew up in Vancouver. We know he adopted the identity of the Griffin. He wore like a mask with like a beak on it. I don't know why. I do know why, but it's not really described in the book. He acted as a superhero. He wasn't particularly good at it. He was active in the New York City area for a while. He eventually, when Hyperion left the planet to fight on the Ring Gate against the Wedge for the Ildroch, Rohan went with him. He was one of the group that went there. He fought, so he was in the Ildroch military for 10 years, during which he didn't go back to Earth. He fought on the Ring Gate for 2. We don't know what happened there. And then as time went on, he became sort of Hyperion's, worked with Hyperion, worked with the other hybrids, became more, he wasn't particularly big or strong or tough by hybrid standards, but he's a little more clever than most and very good at sort of figuring out ways to solve problems. So he eventually became considered one of the more dangerous hybrids, considered by the military leadership. They sent him into some nasty situations, and he emerged triumphant. So we know he went to a place called Tolonea. Tolonea is a water world populated by people who look like a humanoid lower body, and their heads are like an octopus or half an octopus squashed down. The water planet, they rebelled against the Empire for reasons that are unclear. Rohan was sent to stop the rebellion, and he did by committing a small genocide against a portion of their population that was encouraging this the rebellion. He killed them all and saved the planet, but with a tremendous amount of blood on his hands. There was this a group of, there's a race called the Shage. The Shage have very advanced technology. They can do all kinds of weird magical things that other people aren't good at doing. They're tall, they're very elven-like, right? White hair, pale, pointy ears, all that. There was a group of Shage that were doing experiments they shouldn't have been doing, that were forbidden by the Ildroch. Rohan basically was sent to this solar system where a bunch of Shades were doing this stuff, and he basically destroyed them completely. So as the Griffin, he became very kind of infamous and scary, and at some point he was very sick of the bloodshed and being put in these situations. It was weighing on him, so he sought to be free of the Ildroch military. And then the rebellion happened, and I mentioned the hybrid rebellion. They went to him and said, we want you to stop it. We want you to stop. These guys are annoying us. And if you don't stop it, we're going to unleash the matrons. And the matrons will just destroy entire planets and entire systems, and they'll kill billions. But we need this rebellion stopped. So what are you going to do? So he did it. But in return, he was allowed to leave. So he left. Remember, he'd been wearing a mask this whole time, known across the galaxy as the Griffin, but he retires to this place called Wistful, hence Wistful Ascending, the name of the space station. It's a sentient space station. It's sentient because that's the only way it can resist. All big ships and space stations have to be sentient, otherwise they can't have no resistance to magical powers, and they're terribly vulnerable. So Wistful's no exception. Very old space station on a very sort of out-of-the-way system called Toth. Let me make sure I'm doing this all in order. So at the beginning of Wistful Ascending, Rohan is working not as the Griffin, but no matter. He's showing his real face. No one really knows that he's the same guy that did all this stuff, whose name is a curse across 1,000 worlds. Right? No one knows that on Wistful. Very few people know. It's not openly known. He's a tow chief. He basically tows ships. Ships come near Wistful and they turn off their engines. She doesn't want them flying in under their own power because they might make a mistake and crash or tear off a piece of her. So he tows them in by hand. He can fly in space without a spacesuit. That's his shtick. He brings the ships in and he's trying to live a quiet life. He's trying to like find a good place to get coffee. And there's another character, Wei Li, who's a yellow-skinned reptilian humanoid, so roughly human shape, but a reptile, no hair, red and green scales and like stripes, vertically slit pupils, and she's a very powerful empath. She can sense the emotions of others, not their thoughts precisely, but their intent, their feelings. And she's the security chief. They're friends, or at least friendly-ish at the beginning of Wistful Ascending. There are the interesting thing about Thoth's system is that there's the planet. So it's basically this star, planet, and then Wistful is orbiting at the L2 Lagrange point opposite the planet. So the planet always hovers kind of right above her, like because here you're looking up, right as a planet, and then the stars behind it, and they orbit in sync. So the planet is always basically stationary relative to Wistful, and together they orbit the star, and the planet has giant monsters on it. It's not known at the beginning of the book what the monsters want or do, but it turns out they are triggered by feelings of anger or conflict. When something lands on the planet and they sense that, they kill it. So the planet is uninhabitable because you've got giant like insects and giant flying reptiles and maybe other kinds on the planet. No one knows why they're there or what they're for, but the planet, you can't stay on the planet because if you land and you get a little pissed off about something, the giant monsters come and kill you. And they're very tough. So Rohan can't fight them. I mean, he can like annoy them and like slow them down, but he can't like kill them. So no one else can either, because hybrids are the strongest things around, pretty much, next to matrons. Okay, so that's the setup, beginning of the book. First thing that happens is the other interesting thing about this system is that there are 5 wormholes. There are basically disks in space that are believed to once have opened and led to other points in space at some distance away, presumably very far star systems. No one knows how to open them. They haven't opened in thousands of years, many thousands of years. No one knows how to open them. No one knows where they lead. No one really seems to know who left them there. Maybe Wistful does, but she's not talking. But there are 5 of them in the system that have just been there forever. In the beginning of the book, one of them opens up and a ship comes through, and the ship is full of talking bears. And they're from very far away, and they're refugees from some kind of fight. Rohan goes to meet them. They land on the ship. He ends up calling them Ursins because that's how I name things. There's Aang and there's Ursula. Aang is their war chief. He's got one cybernetic eye. He's tends to be angry, but he's not really angry. He's a big teddy bear. Ursula was the captain, female. They're the only 2 Ursins whose names you might want to remember. There's a couple thousand of them. They end up settling on Wistful. They try to take over the station. Rohan stops them, but he stops them without killing them. He stops them in a way that says, you can shoot me all you want, but you're not going to actually do any damage. You're just making yourself look silly, and that's how he wins the fight. He doesn't kill them all. And that is sort of the beginning of him leaving an impression on people that he's not like other hybrids. He's not all anger and, oh, you stand up to me, I'm going to bathe in your blood. He's trying to walk a different path. After that, there's a romantic subplot. I'll tell you how it all begins and ends. He meets Rinth, who's a child. They run into each other in the hall. He meets Rinth's single mother, who's a shuttle pilot. They're both, I forget the name of their species. They're green, they have antennae. The mother is Tamara. They date. They get along really well. They're both interested in each other. They're adults. That's what happens. There's a Shage. Remember, he didn't kill all the Shage, he just killed an offshoot of the Shage. There's a Shage, an adjudicator named Magden Kral, who comes around and says, this woman Tamara, her father's a very important rich dude. We don't like her dating just anybody. You gotta leave her alone. Rohan basically scares him off, but he says, look, you never do this to her again, no matter who the guy is. This is wrong. Rohan's terrifying when he wants to be, scares off the Shage because again he's terrifying, and then Tamara realizes, or both of them realize, that the reason her son's father left her life was probably because he was also scared off by these legitimately very scary people, and she realized she has to give him another chance because that's kind of a legit reason to leave. Like I said, he was terrified they were going to kill him, or torture him to death or something, and they really would have. They are not as terrifying as Rohan, but terrifying in their own way. So at the end of the book, Tamara ends up leaving Rohan to go back to her son's father, who's not named in this book. Then, because the wormhole opened, remember the wormhole hadn't opened in a long time, Ben and Marion Stone, who apparently had been off Earth working at the university, they come in a big ship called Insatiable, very big research vessel. They come to Wistful to investigate the wormhole. And first Rohan's like, wait, you guys seem familiar, because they were Hyperion's sidekicks. They're very famous humans. A spy comes along with them to spy on them, sent by the Ildrakh. The spy is a hybrid. He has a ship that has amazing stealth, almost unheard of stealth capabilities. The ship is called Void's Shadow, and he basically can hide out there and watch them. He seems to be spying on Marion because she has some experiments going on that the Ildrakh might not be sure are okay, so he's in the system then too. Marion tries to open the wormhole against orders. Remember, the Wistful says, no, don't do that, that's dangerous, you're not allowed. She goes, well, I'm going to try it anyway, because Marion's got a little bit of a stubborn streak. She has an assistant, Garen, who's a Tolanan, squid-headed guy or octopus-headed guy. He has powered armor. He challenges Rohan, so he basically delays Rohan to the point where Marion can go and open the wormhole, which she does. She figures out how to open the wormhole using clues given by the Ursans who had known how. From the Ursans had started on the other side of the wormhole, one of them. So they knew how to open it from their side. She figured out how to open it from Wistful's side using their ideas, which did not exist in that sector at that point. During that fight, Marion tells over on open comm that Rohan had ended the rebellion himself. This is not common knowledge. This is like a secret. So she lets that out. So wormholes open. Nothing really happens immediately. But the spy on Void's Shadow heard that comm interaction and was infuriated that Rohan had ended the rebellion, betrayed the hybrids that way. He attacks Rohan. Rohan beats him, sends him off, says, get out of here, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to hurt you pretty bad, and sends him off. A bunch of Ursan refugees, then the wormhole gets opened again from the other side. A big ship full of refugees, and more refugees comes through looking for safety. Now it's been opened twice, so they kind of said, oh, this is actually a repeatable thing, that we can open and close this thing. So they believe that it doesn't go nowhere. It's been opened from both sides. They come through, and Rohan goes to meet them, and then attack ships, the refugees from something. So attack ships follow them and try to destroy them. Rohan tries to defend them. He can't. The ship full of this is the second ship full of Ursan refugees is destroyed. They're all dead. Rohan loses his temper, as you might imagine he might, and destroys the attackers, kills them all, kills a bunch. They surrender. They're terrified. They've never seen anything like this. He does not stop. He continues to attack them. He has lost his temper, and he goes in basically in a berserker rage, kills every last one of them, and is badly hurt in the process. But this is a war crime, right? They surrendered, and he was killing them anyway. So not cool. Yes, so at some point the spy has gotten away, remember? So Rohan sent him off. He gets a message to 3 other hybrids that they should, that Rohan ended this rebellion. So they come back in Void's Shadow. They come back to the system. They basically attack Rohan and try to kill him. They threaten that they'll kill not only him, but all his friends on the station, because he needs to really be punished. And he says, wait, I have this secret weapon and you can have it, and then leave my friends alone. And they're like, sure. Remember, hybrids are angry, like they're weapons. They're weaponized. They're not taught to be smart. They're not encouraged to be free thinkers. They're encouraged to be weapons who listen to orders. act violently when they're told to. So they follow him down to Toth, and he says, "Yeah, my secret weapon. Look, it's right in that cave. You're right there." And they get down there, and he's like, "You're all ugly," and he gets them all kind of worked up and angry. And remember, what's on Toth 3? Yes, giant monsters. And Rohan doesn't want to fight, so he just kind of puts his head in the sand and says, puts his fingers in his ears and says, "I'm just gonna be calm. I don't want to fight anybody. I'm a good guy." And the kaiju on Toth 3 tear apart the 3 hybrids, so they're dead. And at the end of the book, Rohan's back on Wistful. He's single again. The hybrids are gone, and as far as we know, Ben and Marion are sticking around. The Ursins are settling. The 2,000 Ursins who came in that first ship are settling on Wistful, and that's the end of the book. Okay, if you have any questions about any of this, if you found this useful, by all means, leave a comment at the bottom of the video. If you have any questions about anything, leave comments. Try not to spoil later books with your questions. Because the whole point of this video is I'm trying to make something that someone who has read only Wistful Ascending and only Wistful Ascending can watch this. Or if you've read 3 and you want to watch, I'm going to make 3 videos. I'm going to make a video for every book. That's my plan. Rather than having a recap in the beginning of the book. I don't know if this is better. I think this is better. If you agree or disagree, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I hope this was valuable to you. Again, any questions? Leave them in the bottom. Anything you think I should have added, put it in comments. I can always re-record this. I don't plan to ever have more than one of these, but I can always take this down and put a new one up. This is meant to be a resource for people reading the Hybrid Helix. So when you get to later books, you can look back and go, "Oh yeah, that's what happened then," or "How far did this storyline progress?" So that's the idea. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was valuable to you in some way. And I am JC Byrne, and I hope you have a great day.